Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is the session 23 for VBCS page development. Here in this video, we will learn how we can create an editable table. And when we are talking about creating editable table, we have to use few logics where we will learn how we can update the ADP variable data. And also we will learn how we can update business object records based on that ATP variables and whatever data we have in ATP when we are creating that editable table. So you can see in the screen, I have added the screenshot where I designed one page. That's the really simple page where I added one table component. In the table, I made the table as a editable so that whenever user will edit anything, once all the edition will be completed, user will click on save and whatever updated data, it will be updated in the business object. So how we can achieve these things, we are going to learn in this video. Before going to start, I request you, if you have not subscribed this channel yet, please subscribe this channel. Here you can see, so this is our VBCS page where we add a table component and where we are showing employee data from business objects. Now if you will see, when we are going to edit any of the row, for example, our row is first row is Zafar1. If we will edit that one, so we can edit directly by double clicking on any of the row. And instead of Zafar1, let me put as MD Zafar. And when I will go for another column, so I made this two column, first name and last column only for the editable, rest of the we are not able to edit. So here if I want to say this one, and if I click outside, so you can see that row, first row is edited, right? And once I will reload this page, the data will be removed because we have not submitted this updated records to business object. So how we can do all these things, we are going to learn in this video. Here you can see we added the page. When page loaded, it's coming and the data you can see it's same as earlier, right? If we will edit again this one, and I will make as something like this one. And now here you can see once I move to the second line, that you can see the first row name is Zafar Alam, second name is Aaron. And when I will click on this save, this data will be submitted to business object. Even we can add one notification once save. So I have not added, yes, in the demo we will add. So now if we will refresh the page, we will get this value as we have already clicked on this save button. Let me refresh the page and I can show you that one. So now that its page is going to load. So once page will be loaded, you can see we will be able to see the latest data, that is updated data for Alam and Aaron. So that kind of things we are going to create in this video. So let's move to the development page where we will create one application and that we will do all this thing. Let's begin. So here you can see this is our application. In this application we are going to create. So I have already created one editable table. So instead of creating this one, I will go and create a new Visual Builder application. So I will just go click on create. I will give the name as editable table as I already created one for testing purpose. So I'm just going to give a name as 2. Now we given the application name, click on finish. So new VBCS application will be created with editable name, editable table 2. Inside that we have to create page, we have to create business object. So first we will create one business object. Business object is some in VBS something where we can say database, right? So that we can create one table for employee and we can store data, and the same data we will display in the VBCS page using table. So just go, we have to create the business object. So I will click here. I will give the name as employee BO, employee business object. Just click on create. So now you can see employee BO is created, but in field we don't have any column. So these all columns are predefined column whenever we are creating any objects. Now here we have to create our columns. What columns we require to create, right? So if you will see, I have already created one employee database table last time. I will use the same. So you can see this employee table having this column. So I will use the same employee so that I don't want to enter the data. I can directly import data using this CSV file in the table. So here these all are our column names. I will just copy each and every column and I will add here. So click one field. Field is give the name as this one employee ID, and everything I will be consider as a string only. So just click field. Now I will go for first name. Click here field first name. Same way I will go for last name. Click on field last name, gender, email address, And the last we have department ID. So let me go for department ID 2 so that I can use that CSV file to import this data into this business objects. We have already shown how we can import data into business object using CSV file. So for importing data, just we have to go to the data tab, and in this data tab you will see we don't have any records in the table with this column, right? So what we will do, we will just click on this import button. We have to select the file. I will click here to select the file. So here we have this employee.csv. I will select this employee.csv. Once I will select that employee.csv, file will be loaded here. Just we have to click on import. Once I will click on import, whatever data we will have in the file, that will be imported to business object. You can see business object table. So now you can see D01, all these things, email ID, first name, last name, everything here we have. So now this business object we will use to display data. So first we have to go to the page where we have to create one page, web page, right? So creating web application, we have to just click on this web application, give the name to that application. I will give the name as Editable Table Web App 1 and click on create. So now one web application is created and we are on the main page. In the main page, whenever we are creating any page, by default we are getting design. So I don't want to use that design anymore, so just I have to remove all these things. So we can remove one by one and directly we can go to the code, and I don't want to see anything, I will delete here. Now this deleted, if you will go to the design, you will be able to see that empty page. Now here what I have to do, I have to just add one, you can see as per this design, add one heading so that this heading can be with this value. So I will copy this one. For adding the heading, we have add heading. You can see this heading. I will drag this heading here. So once we drag this heading, you can see we have to just make a little bit small in the size. So here if you will see, I will make it as 5 something, and here value I will make as the same. I make a copy from there. So editable table using ADP. Now here we have to add the table. So for adding the table, we have table component. So here only you can search the table. You can see this table. I will drag this table here. So now table component added, but we have to load the data into this table. So for loading data into this table, we have two options. One, we can use that service data provider directly by clicking on this data and just directly moving to adding data in this table directly from business object. And another way can be that we can use the ADP variable to store. For that, we have to create one variable. That variable can have all the columns, whatever columns we want to display in the table, so that from business object we can get all the columns, and that column we can map to this table. For that, we have to create one variable. And before creating any variable, we have to create the type. So first I will go for type. And we know that whenever we are creating any business object, by default we are getting business object endpoints. Endpoint is nothing, that is the REST API. So that using that REST API, we can get the data from business object, we can update the data, all the operations we can perform. So now here we will create one type. So for creating the type, just we have to click on this type. And I don't want to create type generally manually, right? I want to create type from endpoint. So just select from endpoint. And here from which endpoint we want to create the type. So I want to create type from employee business object endpoint. So expand here, and here you can see we have the operation from where we can get that one. So here I will go for get with ID so that it can return only one object with all the columns. So just go next, and here you can see we have all the column for that inside that object. So I want to create with ID, employee ID, first name and last name, gender and email. Only this column I want to display on the table. I don't want to display anything. You can pick based on requirement, but yes, I just want to take only these columns. You can see all these columns are listed here. This type will contain all the columns. Just go to finish. So once you will be able to click on finish, you will be see one type created with all these columns. Now we have to create the variable. For creating the variable, go to the variable, and now if you will see, we have to create one variable. That variable can store the multiple records, right? You can see the type we created. So type defined that the column, but that column can have multiple row, right? It means that there will be the concept of array, right? So while creating the variable, we will not create manual variable. We will create variable with ADP, that is array data provider. I have already explained in previous video what is ADP, how to use all these things. So I will just give the name as uh, EMP ADP var. And now here instead of a string, I will select as array data provider. Now click on create. So now one variable is created with the name emp adp var as a type array data provider. Now we have to select the data type for this variable. For selecting the data type, you can see type is that array data provider. If you will go to the below, you can see the item type, that is data type for that variable. So here we have to select the type we created. So we created the type as get employee bo. If you will go to the type here, you will be able to see that get employee bo. So even we can change the name. So let me change the name. I will get the name get emp bo type, right? So this is new type we created. I changed the name. So now this type we will use while creating the array data provider variable ADP. So this is our variable. If you will go to the below here in the item type, you can see get employee bo type. This type we have to select. Once you will select the type, you will see below details, right? And all of the type we have to make one, we have to consider one column as a primary key, primary attribute, so that based on that we can do the various operations. So here once we selected this one variable, here you can see below we have the key attributes. In the key attributes, I will select as ID. So now our variable is created, that is array data provider variable. ADP variable is created. Now we have to load data in this variable, right? And that variable we will map to the table. But when we have to load that data, right? So we want that whenever page will load, automatically the data will be available in that ADP variable, and that ADP variable we will map here. So on the page load event, we have to assign the data from business object to that array data provider variable. So you can click on anywhere in the page, that empty page, and go to the event. And here once you will click on the event listener, you will get one option, that is VB enter. That is the event when page loaded. So this event will automatically occur when page will load. And inside that event we created one action chain, and you can see the action chain name is page VB enter chain, right? I don't want to change, let it be same. Now in this action chain, what action we want to perform? We want to first call the endpoint to get all the data from business object, and whatever data it will return, we want to store that data into the table, into that variable, and then we will map that variable to the table. So first we will invoke the REST API. So we'll go for call endpoint, and here we have to select which endpoint we want to call. Select here, I want to call that get employee, so that it will return all the employee inside that business objects. Click on select. So now with the help of this endpoint call, we will be get the data from business objects. Now we have to store this data into array data provider variable. For storing data into variable, we have to use assign variable. I will drag this assign variable here, and now here we have to select in which variable we have to assign the data. So if you will go to the variable, here in the variable you will be able to see, you can see employee ADP var, and inside that var here you can see we have data, that is this is the array data, right? And now here we have to map this data with the response from this business object call, right? So if you will go here, this is our variable. Even we select variable from here, and you can go to directly to click on variable, and you can map this one. So now variable is mapped. We have to map the response of the first call. So click here again, assign, and value, from where we will pick the value. So we will pick the value from this call, right? And what is the name of this call? The name of this call, you can see call REST business object get all employee bo result, right? So here again we will go for this second one. I will click on this expression builder, and here you can see this is our call REST business object get all employee bo. I will expand this one, and here you can see inside the body we will have item. Here you can see item. This is the array element, and our ADP variable is also array element. If you will expand this one, you will see this one. The item is a single value with the index, you can see 0, 1, 2, 3. But I want to assign that array to that array, right? So this is the item. Double click here. That will be came in the right hand side of the expression builder. Just click on save. So now we are done. So we are done. It means that whenever page will load, it will invoke the REST call to get the data from business object, and the data will be stored into that variable, that array data provider variable. Now come to the page designer, and now it's time to map that array data provider variable with this table. table component. So for this adding the table here, select the table, go to the data, and here in data we have to select that variable. If you will click here below, you will be able to see that variable as employee ADP var. Once you will expand this one, you will be able to see the data. So here we added. Now once we selected this one, we are not able to see any column. So we have to add the column. So how we can add the column? You can see here. Once you will click here, you will be get option to select the column. So I will select column as ID. You can see one ID will be there. ID, gender, and sorry, ID, employee ID, first name, last name, gender, and email. All these columns are there. Now here you will see we have done one mistake. We will go to the table. I don't want to use this data, so remove this one. Now go to the designer again. Now here you can see we are able to see all the data coming from the array data provider variable. What was the issue? If you will see here, what we have done by mistakenly, you can see we selected as this variable dot data. That was correct. Just we have to select the variable name, right? So we selected the variable name. Inside that variable we have all these column. So we display all the column here. Now you can see table is showing all the columns. If we will run this page, when this page will be loaded, it will invoke the endpoint. It will store the result of that endpoint to that ADP variable, and we map that ADP variable to the table so that it will display the data here. You can see when page is loaded, we don't have anything. Internally, it will invoke that endpoint and store the data. So now you can see that we are able to show the data in the table, right? So now what we have to do, we have to make this table as a editable, right? So if you will see, once we are clicking here, we are not able to edit anything. So for making this table as editable, go to the development page, select the table, and if you will see here, we have one, go to the all, here we have one property that edit mode, you can see, and once we will go select the edit mode as row edit. Now we will be able to edit that row, right? So if we will go to the live mode, here you can see once we will click, double click here, we will be able to see, but all the columns we are able to see that edit that one, but we are not able to edit the row. So how we can do? So once we make that mode as edit, now instead of this label, right, instead of this label, we have to make that input box. So select the input box from here, input box, input text, sorry, this one. And for all the column which you want to edit, for all the column which you want to edit, you have to drag this input text instead of this text, right? So I want to change that first name, so I will drag this input text here. So now you can see the first name having this text. So I don't want to display this text, right? So this is the label hint. I will delete this label hint. So once you will delete the label hint, you can see that hint is deleted. Now here we have this one, right? So again, same, I want to go for last name. So just input text, I will go for last name too. I will remove this hint, and I will go for address too. So input text, email address. Now remove this text. So now you can see we are able to add this value, right? If you will go to the live mode, once we will click here, we will be able to see, right? Now right now it's not even we are able to edit, right? We are able to see that input box but not able to edit. If you will go to the design again, if you will go select this one, and if you will see the mode, right? So edit mode, yes we have, but if you will select the column, here you can see we have the option as read only. So I will remove this one so that it will be considered as an input text. Same, I have to go for this one. Sorry, okay, we remove this one. We have to remove for this one and the for this one too. So now if you will go to the live mode, if you will click here, you can see we are able to edit that row, right? So once when we are able to click edit the row, now it's time to change the value. If I will go to the live mode here, if we will run this application, let me show. Now you can see page loaded. So when I will click of any of the row, you can see the row is now made as editable. I can change the name as Ajay Sagar, anything. If we will go for the second column, that is Raval, instead of I will make it Singh. So you can see when I will go behind outside this one, right, outside the row, edit row, you can see that value again comes to the same as previous. So how we can handle this one? The logic we will apply here, what I will do. So here we have event, table event. So whenever we will click on, double click here, it will call and generate one event, that is edit before row event. And I want whenever user will double click, that event will occur, and I want to store, display this data, right? So whatever data here it's showing from the array, right? Array data provider variable we created. So when we are changing anything, we are not able to display, show the changes here. So what I will do, we will create one variable. So whenever user will click any of the row, that variable will store this row value, all the row value. And whenever user will click outside, that row value will be replaced or will be updated in the array data provider variable. That kind of changes we want to display, we want to add. So what we can do, first we have to create one variable. That variable can store all the columns available in this table first, and that variable we will update that variable value whenever user will click any of the row. Whatever row user will click, the row value will be updated in that variable. Second point, and whenever user will click outside that edit mode, whenever user will click outside that edit mode, so what it will do, whatever variable, whatever value we have in the current variable we created, right, same we will update to the adp variable, so that adp variable will be changed, adp variable will be changed, and we will see. So let's go to the development page, and here we have to create one variable. So click on this variable, and now here we have to create one variable. That variable contain all the columns whatever we have display here in the page. So we already created one type, that type contain all the column. So instead of this time creating array variable, we will create simple variable, so that variable can store all the columns. So click here, give the name as my row. I will give the name as my row var, and instead of a string I will select type as we created, that is get employee bo type. So that variable can have all the column, whatever column we have in the type. So you click on create, you can see that variable we created my row var, and that variable having all the values. Now when we want to store data into this variable, we want whenever user will double click of any row, it means that whenever user will edit the row, that whatever data we have in the row, that should be available or that assigned to that new variable we created. And whatever changes user will do, that changes user will do in that variable only, and once user will come outside, that variable should be updated to the array data provider variable. So that kind of things we want to do. So if you will see here, I don't want this one, so let me hide this thing and expand this side. So you can see this is our table. So once you will select the table, go to the event, you will be able to see the event. The event name is as select, you can see OJ before row edit. OJ before row it is edit as an event. Whenever user will click on the double click on the row, this OJ before row edit will occur. So I will select this one. Behind that, automatically it will create one action chain. The name you can see table before row edit chain, and here we have to perform the operation. So what operation we want to perform, whatever data, whatever row user selected, user click on that one, the same data we want to insert in that variable. So I will go for assign, and here we have to select the variable, for which variable we have to insert the data. So the variable we have here is my row var. In that my row var we want to assign the data. Which data we want to assign, we want to assign the data for current row, for which row user click on, user uh, double click on, or that open the edit mode. So again we will go for action chain here, and if you will go to the value, once you will go to the expression builder, here you can see row data. This row data is something that whenever user will click on any of the row, that row data will store that complete row data. So click on save. Now here we are able to see whenever user will click, double click on this row, all row data will be stored in that variable. Now we have to do, now our requirement is whenever user will do any changes, in this one, I want that changes should be reflected to the business object, that array data provider. So how it will do, so what I will do, So now here you can see when user double clicked here, it's open in edit mode. And now instead of displaying this data from array data provider, I want to display this data from the variable, whatever variable we create assigned right now. So first changes we have to do, and now whenever user will click outside that box, that edit row, I want to update that array data provider variable with the latest variable we have for that row, right? So how we can achieve this one? Go to the designer. This is our table, and instead of go to the code, and here you can see this is the template for the first name, last name, and email address. These three are the column for which we added the text box, input text box to store the data to ask the user to enter the data. And from where this input text is displaying the data, it's displaying the data from current row dot data. So this current row is from the array data provider, that from where that we map that table to the array data provider variable. You can see the variables dot emp adp var. Instead of this current dot data, I want to map this with the map with the variable we created. So select the row, go to the data, and instead of that current dot data, what we have to do? We have to go for the variable. So we have one variable name as my row dot var, and here expand, and which column, for which column we are going to edit. So if you see, we are going to change for first name. So this is our first name. Go to the data, go to the here, and once you will go, this is our variable page. Inside that page we have variable my row var, expand this one, and you can see this is the first name. So I will remove this one and click on this first name. So now first name is replaced here. Click save. So now here you can see the first name variable replaced here, right? Now same we have to do for the last name. Instead of current data, I have to map with this one, right? So even we can copy paste here, or directly you can go to the design. Instead of this column last name, select the column, go to the data. Instead of this one, just click on fx, and instead of data, again we will go for here that my row var, expand this my row var, and here we have the last name. Double click here, it will be reflect here. Click on save. Now same way we have to go for employee email address. So select this row, that is input text box, go to the data, click on this fx, remove this value, and go to my var. Inside that my var, we have one email address. Double click here, that will come here. Save. Now here we replace all these three column values from array data provider variable to the single variable we created for current row. If you will go to the code, you will be able to see this one, right? So now go to the design, and in the design, if yeah, in the design, if you will see, let's run the page again. So now it's loading. You can see once loaded, these three columns is not showing, so it will come little bit slow because we replace this three value with the current row value, and behind that it's doing the operation, right? It's calling the action chain. So because like this page is loading slow, that's why we are not able to see the data. So it will take a bit of time to load the data here in this one. So just waiting for it. Now you can see, you will be able to see the data, right? So but data, you can see we are invalid, we are getting invalid data because same value we are getting here repeated, right? So there is one error. So just go to the development page again. If you will go to the design, so design, that we are seeing that column for same value. So why? Because we updated this value data, you can see here. So now here you can see when we updated, it's showing that a square bracket, right? So instead of, if you will go to the code, if you will change this with this one, as this is the sign of assign. So hope this will solve the issue. Now for this side, we have to make double quote single. Yeah, this one. As we want to replace this with variable, not the array data provider variable, right? So that is the quite simple variable. So now you can see. So now we replace that one. If you will go to the live mode, now again we are getting same value. Let me check. So now you can see we are getting the same value for all three columns for each and every row. That's the issue. So why we are getting that issue? If you will see the logic, what logic we have added? For all these three column, data will be loaded from the variable we created, right? That is done. This is not the array variable, the simple variable we created for row, right? So what it will happen? So whenever this will, like, this page will load, whatever user will select any of the row, that row value will be loaded to that variable, and that variable will be mapped here, right, in the edit mode. So all the row will be replaced with the same value only. For like removing the error and doing the changes, what we have to do? We have to do the condition. We have to add the condition here, that here you can see this is the template, and for the template this is our value, the input value. And what we have added, that the value for this input text value, we are getting value from where? That our my row variable value, right? And this is same for each and every row, right? That's the issue here. So for before giving the value here, we have to add one condition. We have to show the data for this column from array data provider variable only. But whenever user will double click for this row, and whenever user will go for edit mode, then only we have to replace this one with the variable we created for row. For that we have to add one condition here. So for adding the condition, I have already added one code here. I will show. You can see this is the condition, right? Inside the template we have to add one condition using the oj bind if, and in that we will add the condition that if current mode is equals to navigate, then simply we will show the data from current.data only. Earlier we had the current data, right? If our mode will be edit mode, then instead of showing data from that current data, that is ADP variable, we will display the data from the variable we created. So let me copy this condition. I will go here, and inside the template, before showing data here in the input text, just I will add one condition. So I will add this condition. So oj bind if test current mode is equals to navigate, that is navigation, it means that simple, we are not going to edit. Then here we will display the data. So let me first go for bind if was the end, not this condition. So instead of that variable dot row, from where we want to display the data, we want to display the data from current data. The value will be, so before deleting this one, I will just make a copy of this one again. So now in navigate, I will make an edit. So when user will move to the edit mode, then it will display data from my row variable. And when it will be in general mode, that view mode or navigation mode, the data will display from the current data only, right? So current data means that ADP variable we map to the table. So here we map the table here. So it will display the data from that one. So you can see we added the condition. We are getting some error. Let me check what's the error. This one. So now you can see we added the condition. If that current mode will be navigate, it will display data from the current row, that is from the ADP variable data. And if it is edit mode, then it will display data from the variable we created for the row. If you will go to the design mode, even you will be able to see the data. So you can see the first name, the error got resolved. That first name we have the value, correct value. For the same, we have to go for the last name and the email. So just go to the code, just copy the condition, first condition, and instead of taking first condition, I will just copy all this both condition. For each and every template, I will just paste that one. So instead of displaying data here, just we have to replace this condition, and here we will put this condition, this one. So now we added two condition here. One condition for first name, another for the last name template, and third we have to go for email. So again, I will copy this complete both condition, and inside this email template we will map, and here we will display. This is the data coming for an email address, so I will just remove this one and display the data. So now you can see email address is reproduced. And now logic, you can see that's it's really simple logic, that whenever, like for each and every template, when we are saying the template, this is the row, right? This is the row. For that row we added the input text here, and when in this input text the Zephyr, this data is displaying from where. So now when page will load, it will display data from array data provider. When user will click on the row for double click, it will go to the edit mode, and here we added the condition. If it will be in edit mode, then display the data from the variable we created, that is the my row variable, right? And if you will see, and all this happen only when user will go to the edit mode. And for moving to the edit mode for this table, we have event called as table before edit row event. For that we have action chain. If you will go to the action chain, in the action chain what we are going to do, whenever user will click on that row to make that row as editable, that row data will be stored to that variable, and the variable name is my row var, and that variable will store the data, and that using that variable only it will display the data. And whatever user will do the changes, we have to update that changes with that array data provider. So that is the another condition. So we have to add that condition. So if you will go to the live mode here, you can see when user double click on any of the row, it will show the data. So it's taking a bit of time to load, because it's invoking the endpoint, it invoking the assign operation to show the data to that variable. Now if you will see what we have the issue, when we click on live, whenever we are clicking on any of the row, it's not displaying the data for that all the three columns. We move for the variable. So let me go to the design here, let me go to the code, let's see what's the error. So now you can see we are getting error here. So what error? This OJ bind condition, this tag started, but when ending we have to add the slash here. So we forgot to add, so just add the slash for each and every row so that this error can be removed. So now here, we can see we added the slash, and now this is the correct sentence. You can see that error will be removed now. Now you can see the error is removed. If you will go to the design, so it is looking same like that. Go to the live mode, and once you will go to the live mode, when we will click on any of the row, you can see the row is editable now. And if suppose we will add any value, that again that value is not displaying here. So why it's not displaying here? We have done half of the work. So what we have done, whenever user will click to make the row as editable, we are displaying data, right? We are displaying data from the variable, simple variable we created for the row. Now when we are moving outside, it's again showing the data from array data provider only, because of the condition. If you will see, it will display data is when it will be in navigation mode, it will display data from current data, that is the array data provider variable, right? So that's why when we are coming outside from the edit mode, it's displaying the earlier data we have in the array data provider. So now the next step will be, whenever user will try to go outside to the edit mode, that value should be updated in the array data provider variable itself, so that value changes whatever we have done, that changes can be replaced, right? For that we have to do the changes. So go to the code design only. In the design here we have another event, the event for the table. If you will go to the event, the another event we have as a OJ before row edit, and this is the second event on the row. So whenever user will do the changes, and when it will come outside that row edit mode, it will invoke this event, and behind that event there will be another chain, action chain, and here in the action chain we want to update our array data provider variable with the variable we created. So here for updating the array data provider variable, we have the fire data provider event. So we will drag this fire data provider event here, and when we drag this fire data provider event here, so in the drag it will ask the destination, the target variable for which we have to update the data. So target variable, our target variable will be the ADP variable we created, that is employee ADP. So this employee ADP we have to drag here. So now you can see this is our variable, ADP variable we created, and we want to update this ADP variable. So I will double click here so that it can move this side. Click on save. So now our destination variable is selected. So the event we added, the action we added, fire data provider event, it will update the value of this array data provider variable. Now this is destination. From what value it will update? So for making that one, here you can see we have three operation. Add operation. This add operation will add a new row in this array data provider variable. I don't want to do that one. This will remove the row from array data provider. I don't want to remove. Now here you can see the last option is update. And yes, we have to update the value inside that array data provider variable. So what data we have to update? For that, you can see this is our data. So for that, you can go to the FX, and here we have to provide the data. And we know that where we have data, we have data in that variable we created. So you can see this is our my row var. Inside that my row var, we have all the column, and we have to update this my row var with the array data provider. Double click here, this will reflect here. Just click on save. And now here you can see we have to provide the index or key, anything. So I will go for key only. So what will be the key? Key will be for the row. So you can see this is the row key. I will use this row key here. Now done. Just go to the page again. So what it will happen, whenever this page will load, it will load data from ADP endpoint to ADP variable. That ADP variable data is linked to the table. It will display data here. Now once data will be displayed, so whenever user will go and make this row as editable by double clicking, and it will update the changes. So what it will do, whatever changes user have done, that will be stored in that single variable we assign, and that variable, when user will come outside, that variable will be updated in the ADP. That kind of things we added. So just go to the page run. So I'm going to run the page. It will take a little bit of time due to slow that instance is bit slow here. So based on that, it's taking bit time. So let's load the page. Now page is loading, you can see. Now here we are able to see the data. So now we have to edit the row. For example, this is the fifth row I want to edit. So double click here. This row will be moved to the edit mode. Now you can see this is the input box we added. So now instead of Sachin, I want to make that Sachin Tendulkar, and I want to make last name as Ramesh. And now when I will go outside, it will not remove the data. And here you can see we are able to see the same data, Sachin Tendulkar, and last name is Ramesh. If you want to change the email, double click here, and instead of Sachin Jain, I will make as Sachin.Tendulkar.Ramesh. So now you can see when, sorry, I by mistake click into Sachin.Ramesh.Jain. And when I will go outside, you can see that row contain the updated value. But there is one step missing here. We have to add one more step. The step is when I will load this page, again this data will be removed, because this data we are able to display here using ADP variable. Now here you can see when we updated variable in data into ADP variable. But that ADP variable, whenever this page is loading, ADP variable is loaded with business object data. Still we have not updated the business object. So now here we have to update the business object, so that when we will load the page, it will display the data from business object, and that updated data should be displayed. If I will reload the page, it will not display the updated data. Now you can see again we are getting the same value Sachin Jan, because this data is not updated in business object. Now how we can update the data in business object? So here what we will do, we will add one button, so that whenever user will click on this button, whatever changes user will have done in this page, the changes should be reflect in the business object through the ADP variable. So go to the page again. Now here we have to add one button. If you will see here, all the table data displaying in the single page only, right? So we can make this table data as a scroll option, so that it can display less data here, and whenever user will scroll, it will show the data. For that, select the table, and once we select the table, go to the all, search for a style, and here give the table height. So I want to give that HEI height as 300 px. Now you can see table is even being short. You can see we have the one scroll bar here, right? If you go to the live mode, in the live mode only you can see we have the scroll bar. So whenever user will scroll, it will display the data based on that. So now it's looking bit good, right? So now here we have to add one buttons. Go to the design. We have to add the button. So go to the component, search for button, drag this button here, and I want to give the name of this button as save. Select the button, go to the properties, make as save. So whenever user will click on this button, we want whatever data here we have in this table, right? Same should be updated in the business object. So we know that we have data displaying here based on that array data provider variable only. So we will use that array data provider variable to update the business object. So what we will do, on the event of this button click, select the button, go to the event, and the button click event name is OJ action. Select here. So what operation we want on that button click event? So on the button click event, we want whatever row where here we have, the same row should be updated in the business object. We want that kind of logic. So go to here. For updating data in the business object, again we have to call the endpoint, call the rest. This rest, we are getting data from business object, we will update the data, we will remove the data from business object, all the things we can do. So you can see, suppose here we have 8 row, right? We cannot update all 8 row at a single hit only, right? Because update API for that business object, if you go to the business object, you can see this is the endpoint, and if you will see the patch endpoint, this patch endpoint, if you will go to the request, it will take only one value. It will take the business object ID, the row ID, and based on that row ID it will update the data. So we cannot provide the multiple rows, right? For that, what we need to do, what we will do, this is our page. So here we will iterate the loop based on this record. So whatever row we will have, we will add the loop for all the row, and for each and every loop records we will call the endpoint to update the row into the endpoint or into the business object. So here we have to add the loop. So how we can add the loop? So search here, go to the search for each loop. Here you can see for each, drag this for each loop here, and this for each loop will ask you the array element, and we know that our array element is ADP variable. So select the for each loop, instead of this item, remove this item, go to the expression builder, and here we have our array element, that is this employee ADP var, and inside that here we have data. Inside the data you can see this is the single record, but I want to go for data, the array variable. So here you can double click here, you can see that comes here, right? Click save. Now here we added the loop for array data provider variable. Now for each and every loop we have to call the endpoint to update the business object for this loop variable. This is the loop, you can see we added all these things here. Now here we have to add the action to call the endpoint. You can see call rest, I will drag this call rest here. We have to select the endpoint. So instead of getting all these things, we will go for patch so that you can update the data into business object. Select here. It will ask the request payload, plus it will ask the ID of the employee ID. So once you will click here, which employee ID we have to get? So you can see this is our array variable, that is the employee array var. This array variable, this is our array row, and here we have to pick the ID, right? You can see this is the ID. This ID we will map here, but you can see here we have 0, that is the index, and now we have to replace this index with the row for that, row for the loop row, right? So here we have to provide the index. So index for each and every row for the loop. So how we can get? So we have we have to write the index. And from where I pick this index, if you will see, let me save this one. If you will go to the loop variable, you will be able to see the index alias as index. This is the same index we used while mapping the employee object. If you will click here, you will be see the index we mapped, and this index having inside the local only, as this is the row for that loop. In that row we have the index dot id. So for first row index will be 0, for second row index will be 1. Based on that we will get the id from our variable, that array data provider variable. Now we map the id here. Now here we have to map the body. For mapping the body, again go to the mapper, and for that body, what body we want to map, go to the variable. This is our array data provider variable, ADP var. Expand this ADP var, expand inside the data. If you will see, Here you can see this is our array element. This array we have to map here, this with the body. But when we will map, we will be able to see the 0 again here. This is the index. And here we have to replace the 0 with index. Again. So now what it will do, when the loop will iterate first time, index will be 0. Next time index will be 1, 2, 3, so on. So that each and every time it will pick that record from that ADP variable and it will move to the body. So click on save. Now here you can see everything, that loop is completed. When this loop iteration will be completed, it will call for each and every iteration, call the endpoint to update the record into business object. And once this will be done, I want to display the notification. Display the notification so that we can say that it's completed successfully. Here we will go, and the summary I will make as completed. I will give that business object updated, and I will select the display mode as notification type as information. And what message we want to display? I want to display as BO updated, sorry, business object updated successfully. Now this is done, right? So again we have to go to the designer. Now here you can see this is our page, and let's run the page. Again it will take a little bit of time to execute the page. It's loading bit slow. So now it will load the page, it will display the data. And now you can see here we already added the scroll bar. So now table record displaying in the scroll option. Here we have button. So let me edit the row. So first row, instead of Zafar, I will go for Aaron. The second line I will go for Zafar. For Suraj, I will make at SK. Instead of Kumar, I will go for Raj. And I will change the email as s.k.raj. Right, so now we have done the changes in first two row. If we will go, let me update the changes for Sachin. So I will make as Sachin Ramesh. Second row I will go for make at Tendulkar, and here I will update the email as Sachin Ramesh Tendulkar at gmail.com. Now here you can see we updated three row, first, second and the third. Now here once we will click on save, whatever row we updated, it will update in the business object, and then it will show the notification. Just click here. It will taking bit of time to iterate for each and every row, and once this iteration will be completed, it will display the notification. So just wait for a notification to display so that we can get to know that it's completed. Now you can see once all record updated successfully, it showed that notification business object updated, BO updated successfully. So this is the page development we have done using VBCS. If we will go to the business object, now here you can see if we will reload the page, this page will display updated data. Even same we can verify from the business object. This is our employee BO. In employee BO, if we will go to the data, inside the data we will be able to see the updated value. So you can see here the first name is Aaron Zafar. Instead of Zafar Alam, it's changed to Aaron Zafar. We have changed the name as Suraj Raj. You can see the SK Raj email, and Sachin for you can see this one Sachin Ramesh Tendulkar, and email sachin.ramesh.tendulkar@gmail.com. So you can see this is the way we updated. If you can see the page is loaded again. If we after page loaded again, we will see the updated value. So in this video we learn all these things. Even we learn the loop concept, how we can use the for each loop. Just it's taking bit time to load. Just we will wait for few more seconds. Now you can see it's showing the data. When it will display the data, we will be able to see the updated data coming from business object, as the data is updated in the business object only. You can see Aaron Zafar and the Sachin Ramesh Tendulkar. So this is the way we created application. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, I will request, if you have not subscribed this channel yet, please subscribe this channel. It will not take anything from you by subscribing, but yes, it will give me pleasure to work and create that videos again and again. Again, I want to say thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe.